Among the criteria that our committee considered were the following: an individual who had a highly successful career in business, an individual capable of inspiring a new generation of business leaders, someone who exemplifies civic leadership in our own community, an innovator in finding new solutions for challenges in the Jewish community, an individual who has dedicated the time to take on leadership roles within our own federation, someone who incorporates Jewish values and principles in his business, civic, and philanthropic activities. And finally, an individual who values balance in his or her professional, civic, and personal life. Our committee selected Dick because he met all of these criteria, and then some. For any of you who do not know Dick's many professional accomplishments, let me share a few highlights. Under Dick's leadership from 1990 to 1996, Bank America strengthened its retail franchise as well as its corporate operations with the acquisitions of Security Pacific Corporation and Continental Bank Corporation. The company also achieved record earnings, a record stock price, and record dividend levels, and firmly established itself as a leader in community reinvestment programs. When Dick retired from B of A, it was one of the largest, strongest, and most highly respected financial institutions anywhere. As its leader throughout this period, Dick received recognition for his many accomplishments and was widely considered one of the most important financiers in the country. Prior to Bank of America, Dick served as president and COO of Seattle First National Bank. Previously, he was also the vice chairman and director of Wells Fargo Bank, where he spent 22 years. It is safe to say that Dick Rosenberg reached a career pinnacle few of us ever will, but he is not just a savvy businessman. He is also a philanthropist who, together with his wife Barbara, places a priority on building culture and promoting Jewish causes. Among the many significant contributions made by the Rosenbergs are the Barbara and Richard Rosenberg Family Center, which is the Jewish Home's newest building, dedicated in 2006, the Rosenberg Institute of Global Finance at the International Business School at Brandeis University, the Barbara and Richard M. Rosenberg Institute for East Asian Studies at Suffolk University, which is a leading academic platform in the field of East Asian studies. And back home, at our own federation, Dick served as the chair of the Jewish Community Endowment Fund from 1999 to 2008 and was an officer of the Federation Board for 8 years, where he made numerous contributions. Dick Rosenberg has been a Federation donor since 1958, over half a century, a feat to which all of us in this room should aspire. Dick is also a leader on numerous nonprofit boards, including, to name but a few, the Buck Institute for AIDS Research, the San Francisco Symphony, the Naval War College Foundation, and the UCSF Medical Center. As for business-related boards, Dick has served on the boards of ABX Air, Airborne Express, SBC Communications, Chronicle Publishing, Northrop Grumman, MasterCard International, and the Pacific Life Insurance Company. I could go on, but I think you get the idea. Most impressive of all is that Dick has managed to maintain a healthy balance between his demanding and successful career, his strong commitment to philanthropic and civic activities, and a very healthy and fulfilling family life. I have to recount one personal anecdote about Dick. My closest friends know that even though I now coach my son's Little League baseball team, I'm not the world's leading authority on the minutiae of our national pastime. One day, many years ago, my wife and I found ourselves watching a Giants game in the owner's box with Dick and Barbara and some mutual friends. My wife, who is Swiss and knew even less about the game than I did at the time, asked me something about a complicated play and a controversial call that had just been made. Dick overheard my attempted explanation and politely offered to give her the real explanation of what was actually going on. I mention this event that happened so many years ago because I think it gives an impression of the many great things about Dick: his passion, his attention to detail, and importantly, his willingness to lend a hand when my own explanation came up short. Dick, in honor of your commitment to the Jewish Community Federation and for setting such an inspiring example for all of us, I hereby present you with the 2010 Business Leadership Award.
Thank you. Actually, with all the health drugs up here from Jennifer and from Robert, I'm almost afraid to go near the podium, but but anyway, thank you very much for this honor and for that absolutely wonderful introduction. Of course, I'm pleased to receive this recognition, but I'm even more pleased not to be able to recognize so many of you in this room. For many years, every Federation event that I went to, I knew everyone there. And the fact is that I know so few of you today is a great testimony frankly, to the BLC, because it means that the BLC has helped to create a great job in recruiting new Federation participants and especially new Federation leadership. In accepting this award, several people have asked me, whatever got you involved with the Federation? Well, I grew up in a family with not much money, but my parents had some great values: integrity, honesty, hard work, limited resources, but always enough for some philanthropy, and especially great respect for everyone. Those were not only Jewish values, but universal values that a Jewish family had. And then I had the great good fortune to go to the Navy after I graduated from college. For the first time in my life, I found myself in a true meritocracy. As a result, I've always loved the Navy for that reason, and have tried, not always successfully, to instill an attitude of meritocracy everywhere that I worked. Shortly after leaving Navy active duty and beginning work in San Francisco, a San Francisco philanthropic giant, Jess Feldman, solicited me for an organization called the Jewish Welfare Board. Like every good fundraiser, he hit upon the keystone words that would appeal to me. His pitch was that this organization that was the organization that provided the Navy with its chaplains. Strange name for an organization with that purpose. Of course, he made the sale. And then before he attempted the next sale, which was working as a volunteer for the Federation, he gave me a book, The Jewish Mystique. In this book, the Dutch Gentile author attempts to explain why in the history of the world, where there have never been more than 20 million Jews in a world population of 200 billion to 300 billion, Jews have made such a disproportionate contribution in almost every field of human endeavor, be it science, music, medicine, literature, economics, or business. After reading that book, I came to the conclusion that it was vitally important for Jews to survive, not just for the sake of the Jewish people, but for the entire world. The easiest and most sure way that I could help in making that happen was through an organization that was committed to the same objective here in the Bay Area and around the world, the Jewish Community Federation. I began then as a solicitor in Marin and have been associated with the Federation in one capacity or another for, I didn't realize it was 50 years, for 50 years. I had my thing 45. I don't want to tell you how old I am. In fact, at one point, I even chaired the Business and Professions Division, which in many respects was the predecessor to the BLC. But I also thought along the way that I owed big time that same commitment, but in a different way, to the general community. After all, I was promoted ahead of my class in the Navy. At one time or another, I served as a director of 5 Fortune 500 companies, and I became CEO of the second largest bank in the nation. All of this created a significant obligation to give back to the general community, and thus began my work with the United Way, where I eventually became chair of the board and a member of the National United Way Board. But there is another question besides why the Federation, and that question is, where did you find the time when you were managing 94,000 people in 36 countries around the world? Well, I've never been one to confuse activity with achievement, to steal a line from John Wooden. I simply do not believe that there is any individual that does not have some time and/or the financial resources on some level to engage in philanthropy. I cannot accept from almost anyone that they are too busy or have no discretionary income for philanthropy. That position is why I was so delighted to accept this honor from a very hardworking group, the BOC. But the BOC can still find time to be very engaged, both with human and financial resources, in important philanthropic efforts. Thank you again for this honor.